Our gospel lesson for today is Matthew 25, 1 through 13. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout. "Look, here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went out to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." This is the word of the Lord. Weddings in Jesus' day had a certain form, like they have today, have a certain form. The guests assembled at the home of the bride and were entertained by her parents while waiting for the groom. When the bridegroom approached, the guests, including the bridesmaids, lit torches and went out to greet him. Then they had a festive procession. And where did they go? They all went to the groom's house. And the groom's parents were waiting there for the ceremony, the marriage ceremony. And then afterward, they would have a banquet. And that banquet could last for several days. Recall that Jesus and his mother and his disciples went to such a wedding in Cana. Well, now it's interesting that Jesus compared the kingdom of heaven to a wedding. Weddings require a lot of planning, don't they? But even then, something might go a little wrong. In Jesus' wedding story here, the bridegroom was delayed coming for several hours for some reason. So the wise bridesmaids made provision for that contingency, and they brought extra oil for their lamps. But the foolish bridesmaids did not make provision and bring enough oil, so they were out of luck. Jesus' parable is about the end times. The bridegroom represents the return of the Lord in the consummation of history. This is one of the allegorical understandings of some of these parables of Jesus, and it's in the whole context of a series of discussions on the end times. So we are like the bridesmaids who are waiting for the Lord's return. And that actually becomes a kind of way of life. And therefore, we must make sure that we have enough oil for our lamps, that we make enough provision to make it through. We can live our lives waiting for God's return wisely, or we can live foolishly. Well, it comes down to this. Wise waiting ultimately means being a faithful disciple of the Lord until the Lord comes. And foolish waiting means neglecting the life of faith and not doing the work to which we have been called. Then you are not prepared to attend the wedding. Well, part of the life of faith stewardship. A steward, a very old word, is the one who manages the household. And so stewardship involves managing our resources. And in the church, we manage our resources for the sake of the work of the church. You know, we all have to manage. One biggie today, in today's world, is how we manage our time. Everybody has to manage your time. And you can do it wisely, or you can do it foolishly. If you're late to work every day, well, maybe you need to manage your time to get up half an hour earlier in order to be on time. And if you're going to get up half an hour earlier, you probably need to go to bed half an hour earlier. It's all about managing your time. Money, same thing. Wow. Some of us are pretty darn good at managing our money. And some of us, well, we need to work on it. And it's not about how much money anyone has. It's about whether we manage our money wisely or manage our money foolishly. And then we have to manage our relationships. And sometimes it's really important to pay a lot of attention to how we are managing our relationships. And we can do that wisely. And we can do that foolishly. We have to manage our emotions. You know, if one emotion, for example, tends to take over our life, then how do we deal with that? Foolishly or wisely? Say, the emotion of anger wants to just all the time pop up and color your relationships and your own feelings about your own self. How do you learn to manage that anger wisely rather than foolishly? We can think of lots of examples on emotions, can't we? Same with moods. You know, we all have moods. And if you're in a certain mood, it really colors your perception of the world around you, your whole sense of reality. And we tend to focus on negative ones, you know. If the mood of depression takes over your life, then you have to get some help to manage that wisely. But there are lots of positive moods as well. I love that word mood. It's such a funny word, and it refers to such profound parts of life. And part of the reason we have to manage these things is because we don't have any control over them. You know, you cannot manufacture emotion, and you cannot manufacture a mood. They're part of you, but they're beyond your control, so we have to manage them. And then we have to manage our spiritual life. We can nurture our relationship to God, or we can neglect that relationship. And so, we are managing our lives wisely or foolishly all the time. We're managing the resources of the church all the time. And I was thinking about that and thinking about what the difference between wisdom and foolishness is in stewardship. And one of the differences is the quality of our planning. Management involves planning. Now, we all know about planning. Just think about taking a vacation. Look at how much planning that takes. Wow. Except for my family. My family, and Amy can tell you this, they, shall we say, like spontaneity above planning. So it took me a while, it took me into adulthood to really get a handle on planning. And one of the things I learned, and it took me a long time to learn this, really, I don't take it for granted that everybody knows how to plan wisely at all. And I do believe it's a real spiritual part of life. So I learned that you have to set a goal. You have to set a goal. That is really important for planning. And then if you have a goal, you can build a plan to achieve the goal. And then if you have a plan, you can work that plan until you reach the goal. Part of our planning is the budget here at the church. It's very important because it guides our judgment about spending all year long. Sometimes the session is confronted with this issue and we need to pay for it, and we have to look at the budget in order to discern whether we have the money to do it or not. And if we don't, then hopefully we judge wisely based on our guide of the budget. And the opposite is too. We might not think we have money, but we look at the budget. Oh yes, there it is, and now we know where it's coming from, and it's okay. Let's go ahead with it. So that's a part of working our plan, huh? Now, in order to have that budget, we have to build a budget. And building a budget requires making reliable estimates about the amount of income we will receive during the coming year. And receiving pledges in a timely way helps our treasurer and the session develop a realistic and helpful budget that will guide us. And you know, I've known a number of treasurers over the years, and I tell you, their work in the service of the church is constant and ongoing. And we all, I think, owe it to Jen, our treasurer, to be timely in our pledging, because you know, it's kind of an anxiety-producing thing to say, well, I wonder how much we're going to give. I have no idea who's going to give what. I know there's some long-standing patterns of giving, and those are factored in, but for most of us, we really need to take our treasurer seriously and help her work, because it's never ending. She gives us a long, detailed budget report every month, and we look at it in this session. And that takes planning and all of that. It takes managing, wise managing. So, now, here we go. If the treasurer is to make use of the pledges, then you must do some important and timely managing of your resources. For you, each one, are a steward, a manager over the resources that God has given you. So you must set a goal. Let's say that your goal is to increase giving next year by 5%, just as an example. So what are you going to do if you're going to reach that goal? Why, you've got to build a plan to reach that goal. And what does that plan require? It requires you doing some managing, in the sense of looking at your finances. Don't just make assumptions. You may know them pretty well, but it never hurts to look at it concretely. But you know what? Even to do that, you have to manage your time. You need to make time to sit down and do a little reflecting as well as looking. Maybe a little reflecting means thinking about what the church means to you. Thinking about the people of the church. Thinking about the mission of the church and what is your role in it. Maybe you've got some other goals you'd like to see implemented in the church in the coming year that aren't just financial. Well, what's your role in it? How are you going to deal with it? So again, there's the spiritual life and management of it. Management of time, management of money. Just in getting a little plan together for pledging. And so then you also, another part of this is that you may discover in your research that, oh, I can't quite handle 5%, but maybe you can handle 4%. Or, oh, I could handle 6%. Well, there's the part that's scary, you know. Uh-oh, I can handle more than I'm giving. Ooh. You might have to change what you're doing in some other area of your life in order to make room for your giving. So you have to do some managing of your life. And it's awfully easy to just let that slide by. But then you got to start working the plan, don't you? And the initial part of that is simply to fill out the pledge card and bring it to church. Then you really are putting your, as they say, money where your mouth is, because you're making a commitment to God and to the church. You are committing yourself to a community of people, and you know that while you have your giving goal, you know that we do this for the sake of the goal of the church. The goal of the church is to be a faithful church, following God's purposes for us in the world as we wait for the Lord. And then, of course, we have to follow through, working our plan and following through during the course of the year. Well, at the end of his story, Jesus said for us to keep awake. Why? Because you don't know when the bridegroom will be showing up. So let us keep awake in our pledging. Be wise stewards of the church's resources and all of your resources, financial and otherwise. And then you will receive the blessings that come from the wise management of your life. And you will help to bring blessings to others through the ministry of the church to which you have been called. Amen.